Okay, think about your circulatory system for a second. It's this amazing, super complex highway system, right? You've got billions of blood cells constantly rushing to their destinations. But, just like the roads we drive on, sometimes you get traffic jams. Today, we're going to look at two very different kinds of gridlock inside our bodies: hyperemia and congestion.
It's actually a fantastic way to think about it, because understanding these internal traffic jams is the key to figuring out how our body handles everything from, a good workout or getting embarrassed, all the way to really serious stuff like heart failure. One is like a planned detour, and the other, well, that's a total unexpected pileup.
So, when you boil it all down, the difference is actually pretty straightforward. Hyperemia is an active process. Think of it like the city purposely opening up extra lanes to get more cars flowing into an area. It's caused by the widening of arterioles, which brings in a rush of fresh, oxygenated blood, and that's why the tissue looks redder. Now, congestion, that's a whole different story. It's passive. This is that unplanned backup, a blockage somewhere downstream. It's caused by the veins not being able to drain blood away. So you get this pool of deoxygenated blood just sitting there, which gives the tissue that kind of bluish color.
All right, so let's focus on that first one, hyperemia. This is the body making a conscious decision, an intentional move to ramp up blood flow to a specific spot for a very specific reason. It's all part of the plan.
Now, what's really interesting here is how precise this definition is. It's a local increase. It's not happening everywhere. And the key mechanism is dilatation. That just means a widening of the arterioles, those little arteries feeding the tissue. This flood of oxygen-rich blood is exactly what gives it that classic red look.
So when does this actually happen? Well, a lot of the time it's totally normal, or what we call physiological. When you're exercising, your muscles are screaming for more oxygen, so your body's like, okay, coming right up, and sends more blood their way. Or that feeling when you get embarrassed and your cheeks get hot? Yep, that's hyperemia too. But it can also be a sign that something's wrong, pathological. When you have inflammation, the body rushes blood to the site of an injury to help fight off infection. And certain poisons can trigger this response as well.
Okay, let's switch gears and talk about the other side of the coin, congestion. See, if hyperemia is the city's smartly opening up new lanes for rush hour, then congestion is a 10-car pileup on a holiday weekend. It's passive, it's a huge problem, and it has some really serious consequences.
The most important phrase to grab onto here is impaired venous drainage. The issue isn't the arteries bringing blood in, the problem is the veins can't get the blood out. It's like the exit doors are all blocked. So as this deoxygenated blood just sits there and pools, the tissue gets that bluish tint we call cyanosis. The whole system is just failing to clear the traffic.
And this brings us right to the main culprit behind the absolute worst, most widespread kind of congestion. When the heart itself, the engine of the whole system, starts to fail as a pump, it just can't move blood forward effectively. And what happens? You get a massive, system-wide traffic jam, and the effects just ripple out to organs all over the body. So, what does a system-wide backup like that actually look like? Come on, let's play detective for a minute and trace this traffic jam to its first stop, the lungs. This is what happens when the left side of your heart can't pump blood out to the body. So it all starts backing up into the very place it just came from, the lungs.
And this backup leads to a condition with a really intense name: brown induration of the lungs. The name itself gives you some clues. Induration, that means a hardening, and brown, well, that describes a literal color change. So how in the world does a soft, pinkish lung become hard and brown?
Let's look at what's happening on a microscopic level, step by step. All that pressure from the backed up blood starts to thicken the walls of the tiny little air sacs, the alveoli. This pressure gets so high that tiny blood vessels actually burst. In response, the body sends in the cleanup crew, these immune cells called macrophages. They start gobbling up all the spilled red blood cells, and in the process, they get stuffed full of an iron pigment called hemosiderin. And this is how they get their incredible nickname, heart failure cells. It's these millions of tiny rust-colored cells all packed together that gives the lung that signature brown, hardened appearance. Pretty wild, right?
Now let's follow that same traffic jam to another critical organ, the liver. This usually happens when the right side of the heart is failing, which causes blood to back up in the veins that are supposed to be draining into the heart from the rest of the body, and that includes the liver.
And just like what we saw in the lungs, this chronic congestion creates a really unique look in the liver. It's so distinct, it's actually named after a spice you probably have in your kitchen, They call it a nutmeg liver. So why nutmeg? What could possibly make a liver look like that?
Well, the answer is all about how the liver is built. It's made up of these tiny little hexagonal units called lobules. When blood backs up, it pulls right in the center of each of these little lobules, making that area look dark red. But the outer edges, the peripheral regions, they aren't as affected, and they can look kind of pale or yellowish. So you get this mottled pattern of dark red centers and lighter edges, which looks surprisingly like a cut-open nutmeg. But this isn't just about appearances. Not at all. Over time, that central area that's all backed up with blood doesn't get enough oxygen, and the liver cells there, the hepatocytes, they start to die. That's called central lobular necrosis. And if this keeps going for a long time, the liver tries to heal itself by creating scar tissue. This leads to a condition called cardiac cirrhosis, which, as you can imagine, really messes with the liver's ability to do its job.
So, we've seen how an active, planned rush of blood is totally different from a passive, accidental backup. And we've seen how a failing heart, the engine of our whole system, can cause these massive traffic jams in our organs. Which really leaves us with one last question to chew on. What happens when the engine is running just fine, but the roads themselves, the arteries and the veins, are the source of the blockage? Well, that is a whole other kind of traffic jam, and a story for another time.